They never told me the most unforgettable thing in Colombia wouldn't be the mountains, the music, or even the food, but a look from a woman I hadn't even met yet. It lasted barely a second, but it stayed with me because in that look, there was no performance, only presence. That was the beginning. And from there, everything changed. They said Colombia was too wild, too unpredictable, too complicated. But the moment I landed, those voices faded. Because what I saw wasn't chaos, it was rhythm. In every movement, every glance, every word softly spoken on the street, there was something else, something I couldn't name yet. The women here, there's a presence to them, not flashy, not rehearsed. It's in the way they laugh with their whole face, how they hold space for silence without discomfort, how they carry histories in their eyes, but don't let them weigh down their joy. It's easy to say it's their beauty, but the truth, it goes far beyond that. I came looking for answers, but instead, I found 20 moments that stopped me in my tracks. Some unexpected, others unforgettable. And by the end of this journey, I promise, you'll understand why the women of Colombia leave an impression that doesn't fade, not in a day, not in a lifetime. I've been in Colombia for over a month now, from the green ridges of Medellin to the quiet corners of the Amazon. I've seen landscapes that could rival anywhere on earth. The food? Incredible. The music? It follows you like a shadow. But none of that prepared me for this. There's something here you don't see on postcards or travel blogs. Something harder to explain. It's in the warmth of a glance. The way strangers offer you coffee like they've known you for years. And most of all, it's in the presence of the women. There's a certain confidence, an ease, a quiet, unshakable charm. And the more I stayed, the more I realized this wasn't just chance. It's history, it's culture, it's survival. And yet, no one really talks about it. Today, I'm sharing 20 things I never expected to learn here. Moments that challenged me, changed my view of beauty, and showed me why Colombian women leave a lasting mark on everyone they meet. Some are lighthearted, some are deeply human. But together they tell a story of a place and its people that I won't forget. Number 20, they speak the language of emotion. Colombia is home to over 68 native languages, but most conversations here don't even need words. There's a deeper language spoken in the tilt of a head, the softness of a pause, the rhythm in someone's tone. The women here, they've mastered it. You feel it when they speak with their eyes before their mouths, when they welcome you with a smile that says more than any guidebook ever could. It's a language of presence, of empathy, of reading the room without asking questions. It happened on my third day in Medellin. I was trying to ask a woman at a small cafe if I could get my drink to go, but my Spanish was awkward. I used the wrong tense, maybe even the wrong verb altogether. She just looked at me for a moment, smiled gently, and slid the drink across the counter with a napkin already wrapped around it. No judgment, no confusion, just kindness. And then she said softly, "Tranquilo, you're learning." We laughed. That moment stayed with me longer than the coffee did, because in that small exchange, she gave me something more valuable than directions or grammar correction. She made me feel understood. If you're visiting Colombia, learn Colombian Spanish. Not just the words, but the cadence. The meaning often lives in tone, rhythm, and cultural context. Here, emotion is part of the grammar. That was the first moment I felt connected, but it wasn't the last, because the next thing I discovered, let's just say, it's something you'll taste and never forget. Number 19, coffee isn't just a drink, it's a ritual. Colombia is the third largest coffee producer in the world. But here in Salento, coffee isn't about numbers. It's not a brand or a logo. It's a rhythm of life, especially for the women. They are the guardians of the tradition. Before it's ever poured into a cup, coffee is harvested, roasted, whispered over, and stirred with quiet intention. It's not just fuel here. It's a ritual of hospitality, memory, and connection. I was invited into the home of Doña Teresa, whose family has lived here for generations. There were no instructions, no machines, just a pan, a wooden spoon, and hands that had done this 1,000 times. She showed me how to roast the beans slowly, no shortcuts, how to listen for the faint cracking sound that tells you it's ready. And when we finally sat down, her voice softened. She said, "This is the part we don't rush. We talk. We listen." We sat in silence for a moment. Then she told me about her mother, who taught her this same method, and her daughter, who would carry it forward. 3 generations of women connected by something as simple and as sacred as a cup of coffee. When you visit Colombia's coffee triangle, skip the modern cafes. Visit a local finca instead. And if you're lucky enough to be invited into someone's home, don't ask for instant coffee. Sit down. Listen. Because here, coffee isn't made for speed. It's made for stories. The brew stayed with me for hours, but what she said stayed with me even longer. And just when I thought Colombia couldn't surprise me more, I learned about the mix of bloodlines that shape not just how people look here, but how they love. Number 18. Colombian women carry centuries of mixed heritage. Walk the streets of Cartagena, Barranquilla, Cali, and you'll notice something impossible to ignore. Not just beauty, but variation. A diversity of faces, skin tones, textures, and expressions that can't be explained by a single origin. That's because Colombian identity wasn't born from one root. It was forged through 3: Afro-Colombian, Indigenous, and Spanish. A collision of histories, some painful, some proud. Over time, that fusion didn't just define how Colombians look. It shaped how they carry themselves, how they dance, how they speak, and how they love. I remember standing still in the middle of carnival, just watching. The women danced without holding back, arms high, feet slapping the ground like they were part of the drumbeat. I asked one of them what the dance meant. She said, "It's how we tell the world we're still here." Later in Palenque, one of the first free black towns in the Americas, I met Luisa, a community leader. She told me stories about how her ancestors escaped slavery and preserved their African roots through song and language. And then she paused and said something I won't forget. "People say we're beautiful because we look exotic, but they don't know the centuries it took to survive looking like this." That line hit differently, because suddenly beauty wasn't just visual, it was historical. It was survival made visible. If you want to understand Colombia's soul, don't just visit the tourist cities. Spend time in San Basilio de Palenque, the Pacific Coast, or rural indigenous villages. Learn the histories behind the dances, the dialects, the skin tones. Colombian culture is not one story, it's a braided tapestry of many. I was beginning to understand where the magnetism came from, but nothing prepared me for what I'd see on the dance floor in Cali, where movement isn't just rhythm, it's identity. Number 17, their dance is political and seductive. To outsiders, it's easy to see Colombian dance as just movement, fun, entertaining, even flirtatious. But if you slow it down, really pay attention, you realize every rhythm carries a memory, and every step has something to say. Salsa, champeta, cumbia, these aren't trends, they were born from survival. From African rhythms smuggled across oceans, from indigenous ceremonies nearly erased, from resistance to colonization, racism, and silencing. Colombian women didn't just dance to express joy. They danced to claim space, to speak when speaking was dangerous, to seduce, yes, but also to say, "I'm here, I'm free, and I won't disappear." I was invited to a salsa club by a local dancer named Maria Fernanda. She warned me before we walked in. "Here, we don't dance to impress, we dance to tell stories." At first, I didn't get it, but as I watched her on the floor, her body locked in rhythm with the music, her eyes steady, focused, I understood. She wasn't showing off, she was remembering. She told me later her grandmother danced salsa barefoot during blackouts, hiding in alleyways when her town banned music that wasn't approved. "This is more than a party," she said. "This is how we held on to who we were when they tried to take it away." And that's when it hit me. What looked like seduction was really strength, poetry in motion, and a refusal to be erased. When in Cali, skip the tourist dance shows, go to La Topa Talandra, or smaller neighborhood salsa clubs where the dancers aren't professionals. They're historians, and if you're invited to dance, don't lead, just follow. You'll learn more that way. That night changed how I saw Colombian dance, but what I saw the next day, it was beauty on a different stage, choreographed, competitive, and deeply rooted in tradition. I was stepping into a world where elegance is trained and every movement has meaning. Number 16. Beauty pageants are a national passion. In some countries, beauty pageants are fading traditions. But here in Colombia, they're alive, they're loud, they're deeply personal. The Miss Colombia pageant isn't just a televised contest. It's a cultural moment. For weeks, the nation tunes in, debates favorites, memorizes scores. But what outsiders miss is this. These women aren't just walking down a stage. They're walking through a legacy that begins early. In small towns and major cities, young girls are taught to speak clearly, stand tall, carry themselves with grace. It's not about vanity. It's about representation. Representing your region, your family, your heritage. I met Isabella, a 19-year-old from the coastal region of Sucre. She told me her mother was once a regional title holder, and her grandmother taught her how to hold a microphone with purpose. I asked her if it was just about winning. She said, "It's not about being the most beautiful. It's about being the one who makes your people proud." Her eyes didn't waver. There was no arrogance, just quiet responsibility. And as I watched her glide across the rehearsal room, I realized this wasn't performance. This was preparation. Not for a crown, but for a life where being seen, heard, and respected still isn't guaranteed for every woman here. If you're in Colombia during November, catch the Reinado Nacional de Belleza in Cartagena, but also look for smaller pageants, local ones, in rural towns. That's where you'll see how deeply this tradition lives in everyday people. Ask a local about their favorite queen. You'll get stories, not statistics. Elegance was only one side of the story, because the very next woman I met, she wasn't wearing makeup, she wasn't preparing for a stage, she was rebuilding her life from ruins and teaching others how to do the same. Number 15, they are survivors of conflict. For more than 50 years, Colombia lived through a conflict that fractured families, scattered communities, and stained the soil with stories most would rather forget. It wasn't a single war, it was 100 small ones, waged in jungles, villages, city alleys, between armed groups, militias, and those caught in the crossfire. And the people who carried the heaviest burdens were often the women, wives who lost husbands, mothers who lost children, daughters who were forced to become adults far too early. But many of these women, they didn't just survive, they refused to stay silent. They rebuilt. And many, like the woman I met in Bogotá, turned pain into something the world couldn't ignore. Her name is Elena. She doesn't speak loudly, and she doesn't smile easily. But when she paints, her silence becomes impossible to ignore. Elena lived through the worst years of Colombia's internal war. At just 17, she lost her brother to paramilitaries. At 19, her father vanished during a forced displacement campaign. She told me there was a time when leaving her house felt like walking through glass. Then one day, in a displaced persons shelter, someone gave her a paintbrush. She didn't know what to do with it, so she painted her village, then her brother, then her father. Each canvas became a memory she could finally face, outside her body. Now she teaches art therapy to other women, those who, like her, survive things they'll never fully speak of. She told me quietly, if we don't tell our stories, someone else will, and they'll get it wrong. There was no bitterness in her voice, just clarity and strength. If you're in Bogotá, visit the Casa de la Mujer, or community art centers in Suba and Ciudad Bolívar. These spaces are often led by women who've turned trauma into healing. You won't find them in guidebooks, but if you ask with care and listen without rushing, you'll walk away with stories that reshape how you see the country. Camera lingers on Elena as she finishes a painting. Soft light on her face. Fade to a kitchen in Cartagena. Warm steam rising from a bubbling pot. Her strength came from memory and resilience. But the next woman I met, she welcomed me with spices, laughter, and food so rich with love, I forgot I was a stranger. Number 14. Food is their love language. In Colombia, food isn't just a routine, it's an invitation. It's how people greet you, honor you, care for you, and the women, they're often the architects of this experience. Arepas shaped by hand, empanadas filled with recipes passed down, not written down. Sancocho made for entire neighborhoods, not just households. Each dish carries memory, mood, and message. You are welcome here. You're safe here. You matter here. I was walking along the Getsemani district one humid evening when an older woman called out to me, Mariela. She had seen my camera, asked if I was lost. I told her I wasn't sure. She laughed and said, "You look hungry. That's close enough." Before I knew it, I was seated in her home, surrounded by her nieces, cousins, and neighbors. She served arroz con coco, fried plantains, and fish that tasted like it came straight from the sea. No formal introductions, no scripted hospitality, just warmth. And after we ate, she leaned over and said, "Now that you've eaten with us, you're no longer a tourist. You're family." That stuck with me because in that moment, I realized food wasn't just about flavor. It was trust. It was belonging. When traveling through Colombia, especially in coastal towns or rural areas, always accept the food when offered. It's not about politeness. It's about connection. Even a cup of tinto, a small black coffee, can open a door you didn't know existed. Mariela welcomed me like family, but in Medellin, I stepped into a home that truly showed me what family means here. 3 generations under one roof, and one quiet matriarch holding it all together. Number 13, family is sacred. In Colombia, home is rarely a quiet place, and that's because family isn't an idea here. It's a structure, a circle that doesn't easily break. And at the heart of that circle, you'll often find a woman, sometimes a grandmother, sometimes a single mother, sometimes a sister playing both roles at once. They aren't just caregivers. They're the archivists, the peacemakers, the quiet leaders who teach, feed, protect, and pass down culture, often without ever asking for credit. In Belén, one of Medellin's older neighborhoods, I was invited to spend a morning with Carmen and her family. She greeted me with the kind of warmth that makes introductions feel unnecessary. Her daughter, Luz, told me that Carmen raised 5 children on her own after her husband passed away during the height of Medellin's violence in the 90s. Now in her 70s, Carmen still wakes at 5 a.m. to cook for the entire house. She tells stories to her grandkids about growing up in the countryside. She reminds her daughters what their mother taught her. She insists the television stay off during meals. Because memory is shared over rice, not over silence, she says. I watch them move through the home like a dance, passing plates, answering questions, brushing each other's shoulders in passing. There was no grand speech about love or unity, but you could feel it in the air. This house didn't just hold people, it held history. And Carmen, she was the foundation. If you're lucky enough to be invited into a Colombian home, bring a small gift, bread, fruit, or even coffee. But more than anything, bring your time. Conversations may stretch over hours. That's not inconvenience. That's love. The strength of the Colombian family lives in the home, but their identity, that walks with them, stitched into fabric, laced into earrings, and boldly worn in the streets. Number 12. Their fashion is fiercely local. In Colombia, what women wear isn't dictated by global trends. It's shaped by region, story, and roots. In Medellin, fashion pulses with urban innovation, bright prints, streetwear, a mix of high and low that feels confident, unfiltered. In La Guajira, the Wayu women don't just carry bags, they carry symbols. Each thread in their mocalas is part of a sacred pattern passed down from their ancestors. And in coastal towns, you'll find women dressed in bold floral dresses that reflect the heat and spirit of the Caribbean. Style here isn't about standing out. It's about showing where you're from without saying a word. Camilla told me something I hadn't considered. She said, fashion in Colombia isn't just creative. It's protective. It holds memory. It resists forgetting. She showed me a pair of earrings made from recycled bullet casings, designed by women from conflict zones. Each pair sold fun schools in their region, Another woman, Tatiana, ran a Medellin brand that mixed modern silhouettes with indigenous embroidery. "Why do I wear my culture on my sleeve?" she said. "Because too many people still think we're all the same." Her words echoed in the market buzz. And I realized fashion wasn't just personal here. It was political, cultural, and intensely local. When shopping in Colombia, skip the international brands. Look for YU artisans, Afro-Colombian jewelry makers, and local streetwear brands in Medellin or Bogotá. You're not just buying clothes, you're investing in identity. Colombian women may wear their roots boldly, but it's in the quiet moments, the way they look at you, the way they hold presence, that you feel something even more unforgettable. Number 11, they make you feel seen. In Colombia, connection isn't reserved for people you know. It's built in the small pauses. The way someone says your name, the way they greet you with a hand to your shoulder, or how their eyes meet yours without looking away. There's no rush to break eye contact here, no fear of being too warm. It's part of something deeper, a cultural instinct to notice others, to acknowledge presence, to affirm humanity, without performance. I was waiting at a bus stop in Bogotá. It was cold. Everyone seemed tucked into themselves, except for her. She stood about 3 feet away, quiet but fully present. Her coat was worn, her scarf handmade, her eyes unguarded. And without hesitation, she smiled. Not the kind you offer to be polite, the kind that says, "I see you." We didn't exchange names. She simply asked where I was going, then told me the route I was about to take would be slower that day. And before she left, she said, "You're far from home, but not from people." Then she stepped onto her bus and was gone. It lasted less than 2 minutes, but I carried that moment the rest of the day. Because in a city of 8 million, where I expected anonymity, someone chose to make space for connection, with nothing to gain. Just because that's how she was raised. If a Colombian woman greets you with warmth, return it sincerely. Don't underestimate the value of eye contact or simple conversation. Here, acknowledgement is more than manners. It's a shared responsibility. She didn't chase a moment. She welcomed one. And that's when I realized flirting in Colombia isn't bold, it's inviting. Number 10, they don't chase you, they invite you. In a world where love is often shouted, rushed, or gamified, Colombian women move differently. There is no pursuit, no chase, no performance designed to impress or provoke. Flirting here feels more like rhythm than reaction. Subtle, confident, unhurried. You don't get approached loudly, you get noticed quietly, and the moment lingers. It's in how she holds her glance half a second longer than expected, how her smile arrives with ease, not agenda. In Colombia, interest is invitation. An invitation isn't thrown, it's offered. Like a hand extended in dance. You either accept it or you miss it, but it won't be repeated for show. I learned this the slow way. Walking through the old town in Popayan, I kept crossing paths with the same woman. First at the bakery, then again near the bookstall. Each time just a nod, a half smile. She didn't stop me, she didn't engage me, but her calm, composed acknowledgement said more than small talk ever could. Eventually, I asked if she wanted to join me for coffee. She said, "I thought you'd never ask." Not impatient, not sarcastic, just assured. Like the moment had been waiting, not chasing. And later, over a simple cup of tinto, she told me, "Here, we let people arrive at their own rhythm. It says more than rushing ever could." If you're drawn to someone in Colombia, slow down. Patience is admired. Confidence is quiet. Don't push for attention. Share presence, not pressure. Start with a greeting, a question, or even silence. Let attraction unfold without needing to force it. I left that cafe with no promise, only presence. But up in the hills of the Colombian countryside, I'd find a different kind of magnetism. Where women weren't flirting, they were building something bigger than themselves together. Number 9, their strength comes from community. In the mountains of Colombia, strength doesn't always wear a uniform. Sometimes it wears aprons, dirt-stained boots, and calloused hands. Here, women rise before the sun not to chase careers, but to sustain villages, preserve cultures, and feed generations. Their strength is not individual. It's shared, woven through quiet cooperation, collective vision, and daily labor that rarely makes headlines. I visited a small farming collective outside Pijao where the entire operation, coffee, vegetables, livestock, was run by women. Not as a charity, not as an exception, but as a matter of design. They call themselves Las Guardianas, the guardians. And that's exactly what they are. Guardians of soil, guardians of memory, guardians of each other. Maricela walked me through the rows of coffee plants, telling me how this cooperative started with just 3 women, one widowed, one displaced by conflict, and one with nowhere else to go. They pooled what they had, and what they lacked in money, they made up for in unity. Today, over 40 women work here. They share profits equally. They take turns leading decisions. And every Friday, they vote, not just on farm operations, but on how to support single mothers, how to sponsor school supplies, how to repair homes damaged by floods. Maricela told me, we don't work for ourselves. We work for each other, so none of us falls behind. There was no speech, no slogan, only action, written into the rhythm of their days. If you find yourself in Colombia's rural zones, especially coffee regions like Pijao, Salento, or Tolima, seek out female-run farms, artisan cooperatives, and market collectives. You won't just taste better coffee or buy better crafts. You'll walk away with stories stitched into everything you touch. Support small, ask questions, and listen longer than you speak. I left their farm with hands full of beans and a heart full of quiet admiration. But what I realized next was just as powerful. Colombia's women don't just draw strength from each other. They're also shaped by the land itself. And that land is as varied and as alive as they are. Number 8. Colombia's geography shapes its people. Colombia isn't one country. It's many worlds, stitched together by rivers, mountains, jungle, and sea. And if you pay attention, you'll see it reflected not just in the landscape, but in the women who call it home. In the Caribbean coast, life moves with rhythm. The women walk with fire in their step, speak with melody in their voice. Their laughter is loud, their clothing as bright as the sun that shapes them. There's flair in everything, how they dance, how they greet you, how they serve food that bursts with flavor and pride. Here, identity is performance, beautifully unfiltered. But go south, deep into the Amazon, and that energy softens. The women there do not move loudly, they move purposefully. You won't hear them before you see them. They carry generations of ecological wisdom in their silence. Their eyes scan the sky before they speak, and when they do speak, it's deliberate, measured, rooted in place. I met Lucia in Cartagena. She sold bracelets, danced champeta better than anyone in her neighborhood, and teased me for wearing socks in 30-degree heat. And later, I met Dara, a Ticuna woman from near Leticia, who guided me through the forest with the ease of someone walking through memory. They couldn't have been more different. And yet, both felt unmistakably Colombian. Because Colombia doesn't flatten people into one image. It doesn't demand sameness. It celebrates contrast. And Colombian women? They don't just reflect the land. They are shaped by it. Their pace, their priorities, their presence, all tied to altitude, rainfall, ocean, and forest. If you want to understand Colombia, don't stay in one place. Go north, go inland, go east where rivers dictate time. Every region will show you a different kind of beauty, and every woman you meet will teach you something new about where she's from, just by how she carries herself. The regions shape their spirit, but their movement, the way they walk, that's not just geography, that's culture written in rhythm.